So why shouldn't gun control work? You know, I thought about it the other day. I live in rural Montana, and we have a lot of friends here. And what's interesting is, you know, the vast majority of the friends we have here in Montana are not in law enforcement. Some of them have some prior military experience, but they're not soldiers. They're not policemen. They're hardworking blue-collar people. You know, they're carpenters, pastor, counselors, work at Costco. I mean, the average people. And what's interesting is that they're all gun owners. And they're good people. You know, when a law comes out, I touched on this the other day, when a law comes out usually that takes away high-capacity magazines or tries to ban a certain kind of gun, they always exempt law enforcement. Now, there's a lot of reasons why people may think they do that. I think, number one, they do that because law enforcement officers might go, well, gee whiz, once I retire, I can't have my guns, which is not going to be a good thing for those trying to pass the law. Now, there are other people that might think, you know, law enforcement officers that retired and with 20 or 30 years or even 10 years in good standing have shown that in the community that they've done everything right, so we can trust them with those weapons. Even though I have to admit, you know, there was a guy in our department when I was working, and at the time I was on our department, we're the 7th largest department in the country. That's a pretty big police department. And he was a lieutenant. I may have had a conversation with him here and there. I don't really remember. I remember his name. But one weekend he went home. Everything seemed normal at work, and he executed his wife, executed his 5-year-old child, called the police department and said, if anybody comes here, I'll kill you. Then started the house on fire and killed himself. That's a true story. Now, I'm not an anti-cop guy. It has nothing to do with being a cop. Whatever happened to him, I don't know. I don't remember the guy, and people that did know him said, man, nothing seemed to be wrong. People are people. So even when we say, hey, we're going to exempt the cops, or if we were to say we're going to exempt the soldiers, not everybody in any profession is perfect or excellent or can't lose their mind or do something crazy. You know, when I look at the people I know here, our friends, good people, the fact that they can buy a suppressor doesn't mean that they're suddenly going to become evil and kill people. The fact that they own a gun isn't suddenly going to make them want to kill people. The fact that they can have a high-capacity magazine doesn't make them go, man, I can shoot a lot of bullets now as opposed to a little, so I'm going to go kill people. It's nonsense. Now, we all know that gun control is a people control thing. It's a reality. I mean, people have to recognize that. That's what it is. Guns are power, and in the hands of good people like it's always been. Yes, can bad people get their hands on a gun and do something wrong? Absolutely. In a free society, there are downfalls, but that's because we're free. And the idea to take away liberties from everybody for security, right? Benjamin Franklin said, then you don't deserve either. And that guy lived a couple hundred years ago. They recognized the same thing. Taking guns from law-abiding people, one, is against the Constitution, which I know people say, oh, if you say Constitution, you're crazy. No, you're not. I love the word nationalist. I love the word patriot. I love the Constitution. I mean, you read those documents. Those guys were so educated. Look at the way they're written. Those guys were brilliant. And they had fought to leave something that was horrendous, and with God's grace created the greatest country on the face of the earth, which we still are. I mean, I hate saying it because the government is part of our country, and I am pro-country, which means I am pro-government, but we have real problems because we have people groomed to be politicians that want to be divisive. You know, I learned a lot in social media. I mean, when I talk about it, and I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't want to be a griper, but me alone, me and my 7-year-old son who started at 5, we're reaching 7 million people a week. That's pretty big interest, 7 million people a week. It was enough that talking about family and God, that suddenly we're only reaching about 200,000 a month or 150,000 a month. But I don't believe it had anything to do with my son or I. It was the message that God was delivering through us. The importance of family and values. It's a big deal. I mean, usually when you find somebody in trouble, they have single parents or no real parenting from the parents they have. Family is a big deal because that's where we teach morality and values. And which brings me back to what I'm talking about with gun control. People of morality with good values are never going to do anything wrong with guns. They're never going to do it. And to take guns away from those people doesn't even make any sense. And the idea of exemption for law enforcement officers, or if they did it from prior military or whatever, we need not fall for that. Because it's just divisive again. And that creates a society against the cops. Because it's wrong. Listen, to all my friends out there, and I have a lot of friends that aren't law enforcement, your guns to you are just as important as my guns to me. And I want you to be armed. Why is it that a guy that's been shot at directly 3 times, and I don't know how many times indirectly, meaning when people would shoot through windows or walls or doors at the team I was on, I never wanted to take guns from law-abiding people. Look at incredible, brilliant people that have even been shot and didn't do it. Look at President Ronald Reagan, who almost died. Jim Brady was paralyzed. Another Secret Service agent was shot, all when that one crazy guy tried to assassinate him. President Ronald Reagan never came out against guns because he recognized the truth. Whether you believe in that president or not, I love some of the great things he did. You know why? He was anti-government and he was president of the United States. There's a great quote out there he put on. He was on the Johnny Carson show, and he said, the problem with people is that they look to the government for answers, but the government is the problem. That came from a president of the United States. That guy was brilliant. The only reason gun control can work is when people fold, because it's divisive. We just want to take AR-15s. But anybody with half a brain recognizes that. What's the next gun? What's the next weapon? And if we're going to start violating the Second Amendment, which uses the word infringe, and infringe by definition means to undermine. Anything that undermines the possession of firearms is against the Constitution. But if we allow that, then when do we allow the taking away of the First Amendment, which to a certain degree we already have with hate speech? You can get arrested for hate speech, which is, oh my gosh, the spectrum. What is hate speech? Wouldn't it be great to have people that were vying for office in the government that stopped trying to take people's guns and stopped trying to take people's rights? Do you know the Constitution and the amendments were written to limit government, not to limit people? So when we have people running for government that are trying to limit people, why in God's name is anybody voting for them? It's because of indoctrination and manipulation through the media of people to believe there's no need for guns and that we have to be worried and safe, and people just are becoming so weak. People are just becoming so weak, not my son. My son is strong in faith, strong in morality. I teach him to value kindness and goodness to people. Number one, what my son is about. And I'm teaching him to be the most lethal human being on the face of the earth. But with great morality, he'll do great things. My pastor and I were speaking, and we talked about violence. And then he looked at me and said, Jody, I don't see you as a violent man. And I took that to heart and said, thanks. Because I am. I'm an incredibly violent person. But that doesn't mean I'm violent every day. The idea that violence is evil is nonsense. Violence is just reality. How do you think we win wars? I mean, even look back at the Bible. And what I told the pastor too was, do you really think that as David slew hundreds of thousands, that he was smiling and being friendly when he did it? Violence is reality. And incredibly loving, caring people can be incredibly violent people. That's how we win. That's how good wins. So, anyway, I try to keep the videos down to 10 minutes. I hope everybody keeps safe, and we all need to come together. And all you old cops and old soldiers, don't sit back on your butt. Get out there to city council meetings and county commission meetings and talk to state legislators. Stop the gun control stuff. Let's stop the red flag laws that are going to cause law enforcement officers lives if that happens. They're just going to, because there's enough people that recognize the value of guns in their life, and I'm one of them. And that's not a threat to law enforcement. My God, you can't be more pro-law enforcement than me. You can't be more pro-soldier, and I was never a soldier because I recognize commitments of people that make those decisions in their life. It doesn't make them any better than anybody else, but I did it and I understand it. But we have to stand together, all of us. Listen, I'm a Christian. There's things that I value because of the Bible. It doesn't mean I hate people that aren't the same as me. We all have to stop being divided. Division, dividing, and conquering is a strategy. It's a tactic, and it's being utilized against us in this country. We have to stop it. We have to come together. To all of you who do everything right, you deserve whatever you want and freedom in this country. That's what this country's all about. We have got to come together. I'm going to do some shooting. Keep safe.